So you talked about 1991 and kind of falling off a cliff,
Yeah.
and should have quit at that point. But late 1994, you've got a ride with Robert Yates Racing,
Right.
and you also win 3 races late in the year on the Busch Series side for Phil Martassi.
Right.
What was your confidence like at that point?
Sky-
Were you on the mountaintop at that point, or
Sky
were you still
high.
climbing?
Sky high. I thought I was. I mean, it truly was. Jack Roush loved me. Listen, I had nothing to do with Jack Roush, but Jack Roush built the motors for Filbert Martassi. Okay, and then so I still have frames of. At that time, me and Rusty are driving Fords. The newspaper, just like the Winston Cup scene, newspapers were everything back then. So, the Winston Cup scene, you had to get that. And then you'd look at that USA Today, which was a national newspaper for the whole, United States. I went to the sports section, and there my car was that big, took up 2 pages. Congratulations to Kenny Wallace. We won 3 races that year. And my car was in there, and it just, and then there was one that said brotherly love. I think me and Rusty both won Bristol the same weekend. It had Rusty's Miller Junior Draft car and my 8 TIC car, and it was, it was just fantastic. It was 94. I thought, okay, I've made my way back.
Yeah.
You have a 5-year run with Phil.
Yep.
Then you move over to Andy Petree in 1999.
Right.
How did that come about?
That's something that I don't like to bring up because it's not about me, but I will because it's a lot of years removed. And I'll keep some of the names because I don't want to indict anybody. So my 5 years with Filbert Martassi, my 5 years with Filbert Martassi were wonderful. Probably some of the best years in racing because we started a Cup team. And we did good. Yeah. We really did. I mean, yeah, listen, we were a team out of Nashville, Tennessee. So, did we run 20th? Yeah. Did we run 6th? Yes. Did we sit on the pole at Bristol? Yes. Listen, the numbers weren't like, wow, but it was a really good team, So you had Gil Martin, the crew chief. You had great people on that Filbert Martassi team. What happened was this. Towards the end of my run with them, Filbert fired Gil Martin. Now, I know why he fired them, but I'll keep that to myself. It's like, okay, so now Newton Moore, wonderful guy, he becomes a crew chief, and we still had some great runs. But what happens was it was Andy Petree or Kenny Schrader called me up. And I believe that was the moment, I'm trying to make sure all this is going right. It's hard to go through 30 years. But Andy Petree calls me up. Am I right? Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's what you went to Andy Petree.
Yeah, I went to Andy because Andy called me up and said, hey, I'm starting a second team.
Yeah.
Schrader's driving this Skull or M&M's car, whatever it was. And I looked at Filbert Martassi and I said, Filbert, I love you. I said, but I got this opportunity, to go drive for a well-established team. Come on, man. It's Andy Petree. We all know how successful Andy was with, Leo Jackson. And, he was part of the whole Harry Gant deal there. And, Andy knew his stuff. And Schrader was like my best friend in life. And Schrader's like, come on, Herm, be my teammate. Well, they loved me, but they wanted my sponsor. I'm not an idiot. They wanted the Square D sponsorship. Now, always remember, and this is, I'm saying this very nice. I always had the money. I always had the sponsorship. And sadly, that was what I became known for. Oh, Herman can talk. Herman can get them sponsors, put him on TV, and of course that became true too. But so I asked Filbert to let me go. And things were going south because the team started getting roughed up there at the end. Filbert taught me a very valuable lesson. He goes, "Okay, but you gotta pay your contract off with me," because we had a contract, and so never forget this. I called up Square D and I said, "Can you lend me some money? I got to pay my contract off." And they were awesome. I paid them back right away, and I go drive for Andy Petree. And it's funny because years later, me and my wife renew our vows for our 25th year, and we invited Filbert, and he came, and he was wonderful. Brought us this beautiful vase, and but yeah, he was my best car owner. He was different because he wasn't one of these people. You know, he wasn't NASCAR. Filbert always had his own money because he was a successful businessman, so he didn't need people. For years, he didn't want sponsorship. I said, "Why don't you want sponsorship? Because then you got to deal with all them people, you know." But yeah, so I ended up going to drive for Andy, and that's really how it started. I went, yeah.
So Talladega, fall of the year 2000. Everybody knows the story about you and Dale roaring up through the field. And
Right.
Dale wins the last race of his career. Many people have asked you about that race.
Right.
Tell us something about that race that we don't already know. What's something?
Well,
that
there's a lot. I've often wondered why Winston Kelly. It's funny, ain't it? That's funny. It's like having your name be called Nashville.
Yeah.
Nashville, get over
Yeah.
here. Winston Kelly, wonderful man, works for MRN Radio, but at the time was in charge of the Hall of Fame here in Charlotte. I said, "Why? You got that wonderful venue there. You know, why don't we do something about that?" Because there's way more than that race. So what I'm going to tell you is nothing's a secret about that whole deal, you know. But what I would say is this, you know, we have broke that race down. If you go on YouTube, there is a wonderful breakdown of the actual race, you know, how me and Earnhardt come out of the pits last, and you know, we both had bad pit stops, and you know, most of the field is still intact. You know, I mean, there were still 30-something cars in the race. We're still all over each other. But when it was all said and done, that night, after that race, he wins. It's the noble $1 million. He puts his arm around me like he does everybody. Now, listen, you know, it wasn't me and Earnhardt. Earnhardt loved Mikey Waltrip. He loved his son, loved his daughter, loved everybody. But I know for a fact Dale Sr. liked me. He liked me because when I won that first race at Volusia back in '91, he was one of the first people that called me. Get your butt up here. He had me a plate of spaghetti and salad at noontime. Earnhardt was good to me. Remember that's how I got into NASCAR. I drove the number 8 GM Goodwrench Chevrolet at Martinsville.
Yeah.
So I have to lay the land out. Earnhardt always liked me. Earnhardt came back to ASA and raced with me a couple times in ASA. Earnhardt remembered I was a crew chief in '84 for the Levi Garrett team in Cup. Earnhardt remembered that I raced in ASA. Earnhardt knew I was Rusty's kid brother, so Earnhardt kind of knew the lay of the land with me. After that race, when he won $1 million bonus, he said, we spent the night because we were all testing the next day on Monday. He goes, "Herman, you know," and everybody knows this story too. He says, "Herman, come here to the motorhome." We go to his motorhome, and he makes me a vodka and orange juice. That's his drink. And he said to me, "I just won $1 million. What do you want?" I looked at him and I said, "I don't want nothing." I said, "You started my career. You and Rusty did." I said, NASCAR wanted to see me drive a race car. And you literally gave up all your equipment at Martinsville for me. You put me in. I went to V8 Road, your mom and dad's house, Martha and Ralph. I went to that house. I put my ASA seat in your car, and you gave me Tony Urey Jr., Sr., and all your. And we went to Martinsville. I said, without you letting me run your car at Martinsville, I wouldn't even be where I'm at. I mean, of course, Rusty set it all up. He looked at me and he goes, I'm glad you remembered that. And that was that. So, you know, when I'm going down the back straightaway at Talladega, and I somehow end up behind him, because when we come out of the pits, I was in front of him, and I took off, and I got picked somehow. And all of a sudden, he looks in the mirror, and he sees it's me, kind of one of his buddies. You know, we can go to war at times, but still, you know, the guy that is good to me. And what was weird is Earnhardt was wearing white gloves. You know, you think the bad man would be wearing black gloves, you know, with orange in it. But you look at the video and he goes like this. It's kind of like, come on, Herman, help me. That's the way I read it.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, me? Oh, hell yeah. You know?
Yeah.
And back then, you couldn't bump people. You'd be wide open and you'd get here and your car would stall out because of the wicker bills and the gurney flap. And I remember back then they had this thing on the roof, this 2-inch lip, then they had this gurney flap. So it created this bubble. But I could get enough to him to where I could keep that bubble, I'd keep pushing him. And, you know, that was, you know, we just, now towards the end there, the part that kind of aggravates me a little bit, they're waving the white flag, and now I got this run. I'm like, oh, I think I could pass him. And I take this snapshot, and I'm like, I don't know who that is behind me. So I just stay in line because we knew back then you never tried to pass Earnhardt because you're the dummy. Because you just went to the back of the field, everybody stayed in line. Little did I know that was my own teammate, Joe. But Joe, I was used to Joe with the Oakwood mobile home paint scheme, blue and white car. They had something on the hood of that car for that race, a Jack Daniels deal. And I looked and I'm like, because I didn't have time to like go like this. I went and like, I ain't pulling out. And kicked myself in the butt. But after that, me and Earnhardt talked about that race. And if you look at me and him going down the back straightaway, he starts doing one of these deals. And we all did that back. We call it breaking the draft. Earnhardt learned me a valuable lesson. The week later, he goes, Herman, he said, now listen to this. This is good stuff. It's not big, but for a race car driver, it is. He said, Herman, he says, you know, when we was coming to the checkered flag and I started doing like this, he says, you started following me. He says, don't do that no more. He says, just stay straight. It was like, oh my God, he just told me something that nobody knows. You remember that old saying, Earnhardt could see the air? He drafted so much that he knew all the techniques. Well, back then, what he was trying to teach me is that one reason he would do that is because when the guy that tried to follow him, you notice you'd never catch him. But he said if you'd stay straight, you had a better chance to catch up to him. And yeah, that was you know, there should be a short story. I could easily put on a 2-hour documentary and sell the Hall of Fame out, and those dummies never. I said, hell, I could.
Well, keep talking. Let's go.
All you have to do is start out and go, how did you know Dale Earnhardt?
Yeah.
You know, and that would take up 40 minutes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So that's October. February, Daytona 500.
Yep.
Pushing Dale Earnhardt to a win at Talladega is obviously special. But when did it dawn on you that you had pushed him to his last win ever?
When he got killed. It was just devastating to all of us.
Yeah.
You know, to this day, I know I don't know what the inside of your home looks like or yours, but I know that when I'm in my house and they bring up these Earnhardt specials about him dying, I just, when I first moved down here, it was like the glory days. Mm-hmm. It was like there was 250, 300,000 people, and we'd all meet at the Sandwich Construction Company. It was euphorically, everybody was just so happy. And then little by little, 10 years at a time, it all started going south. Mm-hmm. But when you really look at the timeline, there could be a song made by Johnny Cash that, NASCAR died when Earnhardt died. Now, a very high executive at NASCAR told me the height of NASCAR was 2006. 2006 was when that was the highest. Now we know, but that was when, we were all trying to live through junior. So we lost senior and we were all crushed. We were all dying. We were just devastated. We're crying. We go 6 more years. And we're all like, man, is Junior gonna be like, is he gonna grow a mustache? It's stupid of us, but there could be an argument made, that was the end. It is a sad deal, man. Just
was
horrible.
it your relationship with Dale?
Yeah, right.
That got you into position to fill in for Steve Park at DEI?
100.
Yeah.
Yes and no. I'm going to tell you how that happened. So it's like, okay, why did I fill in for Steve Park? I'm in George Debitar's car in the Busch race. I was trying to figure out what the name of it was then. We had Busch, then we called it something. Now it's called Xfinity. But anyway, I'm under caution in George Debitar's number 48 car, Gould's Pump. Caution's out. So your question is, how did I end up in the Pennzoil car? I'm on the back straightaway under the caution, and Jerry Kennan, my crew chief, says, Herman, Paul Andrews wants to talk to you over the radio. A couple cautions before that, Steve, if you remember, Steve Park was driving A.J. Foyt's number 14 car, and the steering wheel came off of it, and it was that Busch Grand National race that changed Steve Park's life forever.
Yeah.
He gets hit in the drive. So we're getting ready to come green, and Steve Park pulls on his wheel to make sure it's locked. And it comes off.
I will never forget that.
And he went, roar, and here was somebody.
Larry Foyt.
Okay, so I got the story wrong a little bit. Yeah. I forgot whose car Steve was driving.
I think it was the Wayland car.
Yes,
31.
It was the 31 Wayland car. So he pulls on the steering wheel. He goes, oh no, he has no steering wheel. It goes like that. And that was back in the days when those steering wheels, you got to make sure they was on right, and you had to have a little pin or something like that. And it goes, whoop, and Larry Foyt hits him in the driver's side, right? Caution, now it's a big deal. But we go back racing, and we get towards the end of the race, caution comes out again. And I'm not running real good, but I'm running top 10. And Paul Andrews is like family. Remember, Paul come from us.
Yeah. He worked for the vacuum cleaner company.
Yes. So you're wanting to know how I drive the Pennzoil car. Paul Andrews is the crew chief on the number 1 Pennzoil car. Herman, Paul here. Hey, Paul, would you drive the Pennzoil car tomorrow? Yes.
During the race.
During the race.
No kidding.
During the race.
I'd never
yes.
heard that before. Yeah.
I didn't either.
The next thing is that we still have a happy hour at that time. I get out of the 48 Gould's Pump car, and I thank the guys. I don't run. I thank the guys. It was unbelievable. Steve Park, we share the same birthday, not same year, but August 23rd. I get in Steve Park's Pennzoil car, and I'm like, holy moly. The seat fit me like it was my seat. I'm like, this is crazy. And I practice. I run like 8-10 laps, and they go, what do you think? I said, don't touch it. And in my mind, I'm thinking, what kind of NASCAR Cup car have I been driving my whole life? This car was unreal. We start dead last in that Pennzoil car in the Southern 500. Pass everybody, get all the way up to 6, and the radiator broke. Inside the radiator was the oil cooler. that was something they were trying back then, and I fell out of the race.
So you go to Rockingham,
Yeah.
where Steve had won that February.
Right.
You sit on the pole.
Yeah.
You finish second.
Unbelievable.
Something that truly struck me in the next week's issue of Winston Cup Scene, you said something to the effect of that you were at peace with yourself.
Yeah.
Because you knew that if you were in the right if you were in the right equipment, in the right circumstances, that you could be competitive.
Right.
What did that race mean to you? That's the Winston Cup division.
Right. So you're 110% right. So I told you, once I got past 91, the rest of my life became pretty much miserable down here because I wanted to do good. I just wanted to run good. When I got in that Pennzoil car and when I got in that Texaco Haviland car, they started nicknaming me Super Sub. I was never good enough to just like earn a ride on my own, but every single time. And Mark Martin is a dear friend of mine right now to this day. We talk a lot. He comes to my dirt races. Mark Martin watches me race dirt right now. Chattanooga, Tennessee, 3 weeks ago. Mark looked at me and goes, Herman, when you get to this division, the cars matter. It's big. And Earnhardt even told me that. And I'm like, yeah. It wasn't until I got in that Pennzoil car and I went, this is unbelievable. And that Haviland car was like that, but I was still driving it as if I had to make up for it. The late great Dick Trickle said, Kenny, when you get in a good car, you let the car do the work. Well, when you don't get in a good car, you're trying to make up. You're driving hard. Just things aren't going good. So I was at peace with myself because I finally realized that quit being so hard on yourself, Kenny. You do have the talent. Now, are you a Jeff Gordon? No. Are you a Rusty Wallace? No. Are you nowhere near as good as those guys? But for a while, I didn't think I belonged, and it was cars like that saved my career and kept me in.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes I wonder to myself, how did I run 905 races? I run 500, and I got the most starts in the Xfinity Series, 544. I got 344 Cup starts, 11. So at the point, I would talk to myself. I would say, how did I stay here that long? And it was those moments. Ernie Irvin get hurt. I drive that Texaco Haviland car and run real good. And then the Pennzoil car. So, yes, it was those moments that made me, I do belong. I am a C+, B- driver, So, yes.
When you would run Cup and the Cup ride wouldn't work out for whatever
right
reason.
There was a lot of it.
You always went back to the Busch Series or Nationwide or Xfinity or whatever they were calling it at the time, and you were able to run competitively.
Yes.
Did you see that as a step back, or did you see that as just a way to keep racing?
Both. It was survival.
Okay, yeah.
Because, and listen, and I'd love to give a financial education to everybody. Not you, I'm talking racers. I didn't start saving money until, like a lot of money. I didn't start saving a lot of money until I drove for Andy. I started making like a real money. Got to remember, up until that time, we're talking $100,000 or less a year. But it wasn't until, I started making some real. I was double dipping for a while. I was working for. I don't mind saying it now. I was working for Fox Sports out of L.A. Big Fox, not regional. I was doing that, and I was being paid good money. So I'd run the Busch Series on Saturday and be on TV on Sunday. So it was a crazy time.
At what point did you decide to step away from Cup and Xfinity Series racing? I'll add a second question. I know you're racing now. Tell us what and how often.
Okay. That's a great question, Steve, because I remember the exact moment that I had had enough. I was in the shower during weekday. And for some reason, my daughter, Brooke, my oldest daughter, Brooke, was in dental college back in St. Louis. You know, she went back there to go to college or whatever. And she was in town. And I'm shampooing my hair. And you know what dawned on me was that I had forgot that I had money. See, what I would do back then is all I did was work to get money to give to the team so I could drive the car. I had forgot that I had money. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm done. I know this is the end. I'm so distraught. I'm so tired. You know, this is it. And at the time, you know, it was time. I went outside, and I'll never forget it. The family was kind of outside, like a Walton. You know the Waltons are. And so I said, gather everybody up. And I remember my daughter Brandy going, "Are we in trouble, Dad?" Because we would have family meetings. I said no, and I said I'm done with driving a NASCAR. I'm retiring. I'm officially done. And I'll never forget. Kim goes, "Hold on now, hold on." And Brandy goes, "That's great, Dad." They knew that I was getting, you know, I'd had enough.
Yeah.
So then, what I'm doing now, year, you know, 2021, 2022, and it's all coming to an end now. I found a lot of joy. Years ago, I found it fascinating that A.J. Foyt and Mario Andretti would run the Indianapolis 500, and yet they'd go an hour down the road to Terre Haute, Indiana, to the big dirt track. I was always fascinated that A.J. Foyt and Mario Andretti ran dirt, and I had that education. And I would always aggravate Kenny Schrader. I'd say, "Schrader, teach me how to run dirt." I didn't want to end my career or my racing life being one-dimensional. You know, Earnhardt ran dirt.
Yeah.
You know, my brother Rusty ran just a little bit of dirt. My brother Mike was a great dirt racer. So what I'm doing now, and I've won a lot, but I'm winning less now, but I'm still competitive. I race a dirt modified. It's about, so you got the World of Outlaw sprint cars, World of Outlaw late models, and then there's us. I race what's called a UMP modified, stands for United Midwest Promotions. The World of Outlaws owns the division, and it's the biggest car count of race cars in the United States. And I enjoy it. I will, when the year is over, I will have raced 81 features.
Good. No.
But it's easy to do because, you know, they're 20 to 40 lap features. And I've enjoyed every moment of it. Dirt racing has literally made me happy and saved my life because it's given me something to do. You know how people go fishing or hunting?
Yeah.
That's me.
Ah.
And that's what me and Schrader are doing. But I'm coming to the end. It's getting harder.
Yeah.
But I've enjoyed every moment of it.
What are you going to do next if you're not driving?
So 2022 will be the end of me racing at a really high level. What I learned, Rick, is the older I get, everybody gets older around me. It's harder to get help nowadays, and that's just throughout anything and anybody. I'm going to sell my truck and trailer at the end of 2022. I'm going to keep my black Toyota Tundra, and I'm going to keep the trailer that I stole from Rusty. And I'm probably going to keep one race car, and I might just run Schrader's track at 60 years old every Saturday night, and then that will for sure be the end. And then what I'm going to do is, I don't think it's right to be one-dimensional in life. I don't think it's right to have to race. I don't like what Richard Petty's doing. I don't like what Michael Waltrip's doing. I don't like having to be in racing your whole life. Now, I'll check up on the boys, but I'm going to go to my baseball games. I'm going to, I don't know anything in the United States because all I do is go to the racetrack. I want to go travel a little bit. Now, will I regret it? Maybe, but you can't be racing into your 60s. I mean, they do, but to me, I'm either racing or I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go to the racetrack going, "Hey, I run 8th. Let's drink." That just ain't me. So that's where we're at.